It's been a little over a month since you were here, and at that time, you said the U.S. had not hit its peak. So at this point, do you think we have peaked, and where do you think we are right now in kind of the arc of the pandemic?
Well, we certainly hit our first peak, and if we stayed with the social isolation policies, then most places of the country you'd continue to see a decline. Because people are going to go back to more association in some places in the country, it's very likely that there'll be a future peaks as well.
And when you say future peaks, that's different peaks in different places, and that's more deaths. I mean, that's more deaths than would have been otherwise.
That's right. There will be deaths in the summer and in the fall. There's still some unknowns about the seasonality. Will we be lulled into complacency in the summer only to be pushed back up in the fall? And there's a lag time as people open up policies. You know, for the first month, not everybody will be taking advantage of those. So you can think, hey, these policies are good. Let's, go looser. And yet the people's behavior is just starting to take advantage of those. And so very quickly you can get yourself back into exponential growth.
Go ahead, Sandy.
That's a point that I think has really struck me this past week, Bill. I've been talking to a lot of people, and there does seem to be this cognitive dissonance. On one hand, people are acting like, we're close to the end of this and, really, taking victory laps in places. And then we hear, for example, Dr. Frieden wrote today that this is sort of still just very much the beginning, the worst health threat in 100 years, and reminding us that the Spanish flu took 2 years, really. I mean, I don't want to unnecessarily frighten people, but do you sense the same thing? Is there a cognitive dissonance right now?
Well, it's hard to deliver bad news, and particularly when we can't say it with 100% certainty. Maybe the summer is helping out here. But we saw Singapore, who was very tight. They opened up, they got a problem. They've had to close back down. Japan thought they could use certain policies, then had to declare an emergency. And Asia, it's important to say their testing and their contact tracing are of a quality far above the United States. The United States does not prioritize who gets tested, and the United States does not make sure you get answers within 24 hours. We haven't authorized kiosks or home testing. That's still a regulatory thing that's tied up. So our testing numbers should never be compared. If you're a high-income person, you can get tested a lot of times. If you're low-income, you're not likely to get tested at all. So our system fails to have the prioritization that would give us an accurate picture of what's going on.
Do you think there should be home testing that people can just do on their families?
Well, we have to make sure that we're applying the testing where it's necessary. But yes, you should be able to get a test at home if you're symptomatic. Then very quickly, all of your contacts, which would include your household, they should be tested. And that's, a perfect example where you need that answer very quickly so people know who should isolate instead of going out and being at work. And this becomes even more important as we're doing these opening up policies. So the speed of testing, South Korea happened to use kiosks. That worked well for them. In the US, we could use kiosks, we could use pharmacies, but we have to have prioritization and quick turnaround. Anytime you get an answer, say 3 days later, don't count that. Take that out of the numbers. These charts people show,
right.
You've got all those bogus tests and the inequity all built into that funny number.
Well, one thing, I don't know if you saw, Bill, Paul Romer's comments. He's a Nobel Prize winning economist. And this is going to sound far-fetched to people, but he suggests that the entire country essentially be tested every 2 weeks. And he says it is quite possible that if you go to places like the Broad Institute and a lot of university laboratories and the commercial laboratories that actually were able to do this, it costs about $100 billion a year, he said, but that would be the key to actually getting things open until we have a vaccine or something. When you hear those sorts of proposals, what do you think?
Yeah, I just wrote a piece in the foundation called Mega Testing. And the question was, can we get from this bogusly measured 200,000 a day up to what you just implied, which is over 20 million a day? That is a factor of 100 greater.
Yep.
And to an economist, okay, that must sound simple. But where was his system for collecting those swabs? Which swabs was he using? We haven't gotten the polyester swab approved by FDA yet, which would give you a lot of volume. BARDA's working with us on that, but it's got to get approved. But even to get the 200,000 to be real and to get it up to something like the 500,000, the lack of CDC engagement on the website with priorities means that that's really in bad shape. The contact tracing, you have to be able to quickly get a test out to that contact. That's what the Asian countries who've done well have shown us. So yes, there are approaches that may or may not work to get way above the 200,000 a day. They don't exist yet. There's things where you use agricultural PCR machines. There's things where you use CRISPR, and we should invest in those. But we can't count on getting to that, mind-blowing number, so-called mega testing. We should pursue it, but no strategy should be based on it because the chance of it working actually isn't super high.